Hello there, everyone, and welcome to Season 3, Episode 2 of my podcast, Book and Story World with author Priya Grewal. So, thank you to anyone who's tuned into my podcast. Today, I thought I would read out one of my self-published novels. It was actually the second story I ever wrote. So it's called Towns of Darkness. The subtitle on the cover is Psychological Experiences or Divine Intervention. So it is available to buy on Amazon in paperback or on Kindle. That's Towns of Darkness by myself, Priya Grewal, and I describe it as a psychological horror. Okay, so let's get started. Towns of Darkness by myself, Priya Grewal. Chapter 1. It was the Christmas holidays and Sean was watching television with his mum, younger brother and older sister. They were watching a documentary about serial killers. Sean had just turned 14 and loved watching horror films. The documentary, however, disturbed him slightly and he did not know why when he loved watching horror movies. Something about it being real disturbed him. The documentary was about a male and female who had killed many women together in the 80s. Sean went to bed around 1 a.m. after watching the documentary and sitting around talking to his family. He turned the light out and went to bed. Sean said a quick prayer to God every night before going to sleep. He prayed for his family to lead long, happy lives and world peace. He had a chain with beads that his mum had brought him from the church, and an older cousin had told him to use them as prayer beads and to think on Jesus' name. He had done this every night after his prayer since turning 12. There were 28 beads in total. Sean finished using the prayer beads and closed his eyes. The documentary was still disturbing him. As he closed his eyes, an image started to conjure in his mind. He gulped nervously. He could see the kitchen door in his head. He could see the drawer in the kitchen in his mind. The image changed into the 9-inch kitchen knife that was in the kitchen drawer. Sean got extremely nervous and started to panic. He didn't want there to be anything wrong with him. Was he a schizophrenic? What did it mean? Why was he getting an image of the kitchen knife in his head? He didn't want to kill anyone or kill his family. Why was this happening to him? Sean continued to lay in bed panicking. He kept thinking he didn't want to be a serial killer. He didn't know if his connection to the documentary was being one of them. Eventually, in his panic state, he managed to go to sleep. The next morning, Sean awoke. When he opened his eyes a split second later, he remembered the image of the knife in his head. He got out of bed feeling worried, hoping that he would feel normal when he interacted with his family. He glanced in the mirror and brushed his teeth and went downstairs. "Hi, Mum," he said to make himself feel better. "Morning, Sean," his mother replied, busying herself with housework. Sean poured himself some cereal and sat on the sofa to watch TV with his siblings. As he stared at the TV, he felt that the darkness wasn't leaving him and still felt disturbed. It was like some weird, disturbing feeling was settling upon him. After he finished his cereal, he began reading a book he had been reading about a teenage vampire who had stopped aging at 13. The character was in some tunnels, and Sean found himself trying to concentrate on the words, the disturbing feeling still settling over him. Later, after a while of sitting on the sofa with his book and staring into space, Sean went to the bathroom. He stared in the mirror and looked at his reflection. He was just a kid as he saw his 14-year-old self staring back from the mirror. It was like being lost in his mind and not connecting to the reflection, even though he just saw a kid staring back at himself. "You'll be fine," Sean thought to himself. "When you're back at school, you'll have your friends to distract you. Steve, Laura, and Daryl. You'll feel normal again," Sean told himself. That evening, as Sean watched a film with his family, his dad had gone to meet up with his friends. Sean watched the film Never Been Kissed and still couldn't get not wanting to be a serial killer out of his head. His panic led to him texting his teenage girlfriend Melanie saying, "Merry Christmas, I love you," to get it out of his head. In his panic, he accidentally sent it to his mum, the names being next to each other in his phone book. "Oh, thanks, Sean. You're sweet," said his mum. "Huh? Oh, thanks," said Sean, realizing he'd sent it to his mum as his mum read the text message out. Sean carried on watching the TV, staring worriedly at the screen, thinking he didn't want to kill his family, and still felt disturbed by the knife image still entering his mind. As the week wore on, Sean gradually began to feel more normal. When he returned to school, he did feel better socializing with his friends and eventually forgot about the incident. It was just sometimes at the back of his head at the age of 15 when he thought he felt slight darkness around again, and forgot again during the following years of school and university. He only ever thought of it as a slight schizophrenic concern whenever he remembered it. He saw the ages of 16 to 18 as his psychologically lighter years with a different girlfriend named Amy from another school where they bickered less, as Melanie used to get paranoid when he spoke to other girls socially in the courtyard. Sean loved his year living out in accommodation during his years at university and enjoyed being single for a few years. After Sean finished university, he moved back home and signed on to job seekers allowance and settled back into hometown life, occasionally meeting up with university friends for a night out, and enjoyed being back home with his friends and family. Chapter 2. Sean had gone to his friends for the evening to hang out. He had just turned 22 the month before. He went to bed after watching some TV. As he turned the lights out and still said his prayer before he went to sleep, his beads had rusted over, so no longer used them. The image of the knife started to come into his head again. He started panicking again like the first time. I don't want to kill my family, he thought, panicking in his head. Again he saw the kitchen door, the drawer, and the same knife in it. He started thinking about the serial killers in America and thinking about the fact that he could control whatever was wrong with him, being from England. The same darkness was settling over him again. That weekend, he stared again into space, worrying. He worried about having a psychological condition. On Monday, Sean went into his new job working in the local electrical goods store, selling TVs and stereos. As he put his things in his locker, he thought to himself, I was bright at school. I can handle this like that guy in A Beautiful Mind. He felt like the film he had seen, American Psycho, and didn't feel like his mind connected to his face. As he spoke to his colleagues and customers, going through the motions, smiling, talking, he felt like he was lost in his mind. He worried again during his lunch break about being a schizophrenic. He wasn't even too sure what schizophrenic meant. He had just seen the term in movies from the 90s, 90s about split personalities. He had heard about someone down the road being a schizophrenic and thought, me too, in his head. He'd always think of this day as his American Psycho Monday and never forget about how weird it was to have the face everyone sees on the outside but not connect to it at all on the inside. That Thursday, 3 days later, Sean went for a drive with his friend Daryl. Daryl had his iPod connected to his stereo in his car, and they were listening to the music loud as Daryl drove, driving to a chicken shop in the next town that his group of friends all liked. He felt like he was returning to normal as he talked to Daryl and thought the socializing was helping him. He wondered as he spoke to Daryl what had triggered it this time. He vaguely remembered watching a documentary about serial killers the first time and reading a book about a teenage 13-year-old vampire and staring into space. Now, looking back, it may have felt a bit like The Shining. What triggered it this time, he thought as he spoke to Daryl? Was it that Friday night hanging out with friends at Steve's house? Sean only thought about it momentarily. It felt like his voice was a little shaky as he spoke to Daryl and felt himself easing back to normal. After that, things returned to normal. He moved on and forgot again and continued to enjoy himself whilst working part-time at the store. By the following summer, a few deaths had started to occur in the area. A pretty girl who had been a few years underneath him at school but he had never noticed before in the big secondary school had been killed whilst driving on the motorway. Her picture and the story was in the local newspaper. Another male, the same age as him, from the next town had supposedly committed suicide. He'd heard that an acquaintance from when he was around 16, older brother had died in a motorway accident too. There seemed to be a few dead dads around the area too. Apparently he'd heard that they all got life insurance money after their death, and the former kids, his own age, now they were 22, always celebrated moving into a new house with their mothers. Sean thought back to the summer he finished university and moved back to town. He had met up with a friend from year 9 and gone out to eat. His friend from the past name was Tina. They had been catching up and talking. She had said something odd that he didn't fully understand at the time. They're the devil's advocate on both sides of your life. All those ones you're with at uni and everyone in the hometown are the devil's advocate, she said. Sean couldn't remember what he had said out loud or thought in his head. Oh, they do the same jobs as in the movie. Banking and corporate law with 40k starting salaries, he thought he had said out loud. This was at a time you had to go to private or grammar school to get graduate jobs, and it was difficult for state school graduates to get graduate jobs. And they do the same things as in the movie, he had either thought out loud or said. Tina had said it like his friends from university were scum. He had pictures of them up on social media. Sometimes they may say the odd rude thing, but he didn't think about it too much. A couple of months later, he had thought Tina's warning had come true. Daryl annoyed him, saying he had been stirring apparently with a couple he didn't care about. What? Sean said. Steve had called him one day after going out and asked him if he had seen their friend Liam's girlfriend on the night out. Someone had pointed her out to him. I just saw her falling over, is all Sean had said on the phone, not wanting to get involved and was nursing a hangover. Daryl had said, apparently you said you saw her kissing a guy. No, I didn't, Sean had said. It turned out Sean's friend Tony had seen and told Steve, who told Liam, and some people were pretending that himself had said it. The story didn't make much sense. Why would the person who had seen the girlfriend kissing another guy be the bad guy? That would just make the person who told a good friend, if that is what he or she had seen. Oh, whatever, Sean had thought to himself. Make up what you want. Sean had felt too popular at university and in his school to care. Then it happened again a couple of weeks ago. A male from a grammar school in another town's body had been brought back from abroad after going on holiday with his cousin. When he was talking about it with Steve and Daryl, Laura had said it next. They're the people from the Devil's Advocate, she said about the male who had died's family. Sean kind of understood what they meant with the reference and wondered if it was the same as when a girl from university kept telling him to shave his head. He didn't want to shave his head, so just ended up cutting it really short just the one time. After the male's death, Sean felt that Tina's words had come true again. Everyone on both sides of life, apart from his family, were annoying him. He saw it as running him down, whether it was over a job or appearance, and couldn't be bothered to explain that state schools couldn't get jobs and got muddled up by making it onto the odd lead-on interview in the city. It kind of felt like his mind was turning into a water tank with both sides of life, where he met up with school friends and university friends in the city. He had started to think about his schizophrenic concern again after the deaths in the area and the Devil's Advocate film. His concern reminded him of a Grange Hill episode he had seen when he was a child, and a teenage boy was worried about being epileptic and was staring at the computer screen. That was the awkwardness he felt about his experiences. Sometimes he had started to refer to it as his working-class serial killer problems in his head. He had seen a film called Frailty growing up. In the film, a man had received a list from an angel telling him to kill the evildoers on the list. The man had started doing it and took his 2 sons along with him. Sean had started wondering if God wanted him to be an executioner, like his schizophrenic concern was turning into him accepting frailty in his head. I don't want to go to prison, Sean thought to himself in his head. The characters at work were getting a little weird. Maybe I'll reassess at 30, Sean thought to himself, if he couldn't be bothered with work anymore. He had heard a rumour that prison was like a holiday camp where men played the PlayStation. What if I don't like it, though, Sean had thought to himself. What if I get anally raped like in American History X, he thought to himself. Well, that puts me off being an executioner, Sean thought to himself. The idea about God wanting him to be an executioner came from watching things set in the olden days and seeing beheadings. I'd never actually do it, though, Sean said to himself. He just saw it as his American Psycho conversations and knew he would never actually go around trying to kill anyone, as he thought of it by now. That did something from the Devil's Advocate movie, which meant running anyone down in any way, which meant being rude. His examples of doing stuff from the movie were telling someone they put on weight, tricking people into dying or cutting their hair short, making people feel unattractive when they were good looking, and laughing at their job. At school, Sean had done a coursework essay in philosophy, a title selected by his teacher about whether or not one of the churches in the country was a cult. Sean had researched the church on the internet and read about murder and argued that it was a cult and got 52 out of 60 for the coursework. Now from the statements about the Devil's Advocate, Sean had figured that anyone who did anything from the movie was a cult murderer. Now he was wondering if God had magicked in the conversations about the Devil's Advocate. It was just because it didn't quite suit the girls who had said it at the time. Laura had said she hated it when a 7-year-old was better looking than herself when a pretty female child had walked past. Sean had found the comment slightly odd, a bit like she was a fairy tale witch from Hansel and Gretel, or a frailty character, so the statement about the devil's advocate didn't quite suit her. It was the same with Tina. She had said, "Aren't you really rich, though?" "No," Sean had said. He had no idea why Tina was pretending he was rich when he had a house people insulted all the time and the rest had larger houses, apparently. He had lived out at university with financial support from the university. He wondered if God had magicked in the conversation that time too. Sean began to think about frailty, the devil's advocate, and God more and more in his head. He acted normal with his friends and never said a word out loud. Chapter 3. Sean decided to start looking up studying masters at university, even though they were too expensive for him to do in England. He decided to look up universities in America. He came across a university called Stanford, offering full-funded scholarships for the year if you wrote in about a section you wanted to study in American politics and history. Sean decided to write about America's involvement in World War II. He thought no harm in trying. He had some money saved up to pay for a plane ticket, even though he didn't think he would get it. Sean submitted his application with his essay piece. He acted normally with his friends, even though he thought about the issues going on in his head and saw it like being a man in his 40s or 50s with a glass of whiskey in his hand and swearing at his friends from his hometown when they ran him down and wound him up with their statements. He had commented on a female walking past and Laura had said, "What would she see in you?" His friend from private school started sniggering when he told him what his salary was. Sean had a delayed reaction when he wasn't sober at these times and swore at them in his head later. So he thought he'd try out for the opportunity now he felt his friends were driving him crazy. He hoped his family never turned into them through hanging around with them through school and university or his parents' jobs. Sean waited to hear back from the university. About 6 weeks later, Sean could not believe it. He had received an email accepting him into Stanford University. He had been awarded a full scholarship. They even paid for the plane ticket there and back. He had money to live off for the year and his accommodation paid for him and the amount of money even covered his plane ticket. "Wow," said Sean to himself. "Now I just need to tell my parents," Sean thought to himself, hoping they would be okay with him going all the way to America and living there for the year. A couple of years before, he may have never wanted to leave his town Colindale or the city of London. He was having too much fun with his friends going out to clubs with university friends and bars closer to his hometown with his school friends and had fun going to the cinema and hanging out too. Now with their devil's advocate behaviour, as he thought of it, he didn't mind getting away from them all instead of them driving him crazy. He wondered if psychologically he was going to have a way better time not doing anything with them socially and not meeting up with any friends at all. Right, time to ask the parents, Sean said to himself. He decided to start off with his mum and thought she could help him ask his father. When Sean told his mum, she said, "Well, that's a great opportunity. You should definitely go. We will drop you to the airport and write down everything you need to do at the airport and take you as far as we're allowed to go," said his mum. "Well done. I'm so proud of you." Next, Sean told his father with his mum and he agreed too. "Well done, son. That's incredible. Of course you should go," said his dad. Yes, thought Sean to himself. Sean couldn't wait to go. "Thank you, Mum and Dad," he said. Chapter 4. A couple of months had gone by and Sean was settling into Stanford University. He had made some friends on his course and in his accommodation and was enjoying the content that he was learning and the research he was doing. He thoroughly enjoyed his American experience. He liked getting away from the friends back home and liked not being ran down and insulted as he thought of it. He wondered if he should start looking up cults when he was in his room and looked up cults in America. He thought about his American Psycho conversations to himself in his head about being an executioner of God. Something in his head told him that a group of 5 men who had stabbed a male on the road in the 90s in a news story in England were the anointed ones. He wasn't completely sure what anointed meant and assumed it meant chosen ones. When Sean looked it up on Google, he saw that it meant rubbing with ceremonial oil/high office. He wondered if it meant sainthood for anyone who killed anyone who did anything from the Devil's Advocate film. Sean decided to start calling it the signs of evil behaviour. If the insults and comments that made a person behave differently, like cutting their hair or changing their wall paint colour, meant that the person was a cult murderer, what were they worshipping in the cult? Was it Satan? Sean thought back to the people in the area who had died in the last few years. There had been some hit and runs in the area in the 70s and 80s too. Everyone was good-looking who was killed. Were the people in the cults worshipping Satan, or were they killing people they were jealous of due to appearances in the town? Satan worship or Jeepers Creepers? It looked like Jeepers Creepers to Sean. What were they all in the cult? A bunch of high school losers wanting to kill off anyone they were jealous of in school or their neighbours? If everyone from his university side of life displayed cult signs, and by now so did everyone but his family in his town, that meant the cult was huge. There were even signs at his old job. Did that mean the entire country was getting infiltrated by an evil cult that aimed to kill people over their looks? Did the people at the top of the cult worship Satan, and was their aim to turn the population evil by turning them into murderers? The weird behaviour around Sean made it seem like the cult was getting too powerful. When he walked down the road in his hometown, there were males in hoods whose eyes looked weird, and females too. Their eyes glistened with malice. Sean wondered if God was displaying their eyes as evil to himself. The town practically looked like weird alien movies he had seen in the 90s by now, where one by one each individual's body is taken over by an alien, and the rest of the town don't know about it until they are one of them. He was glad he had got away for the year. If the above were true, it meant the world wasn't what Sean thought it was. It meant in every country there were cults infiltrating the population and turning the people evil and into murderers, killing people over envy, like the witches and warlocks in fairy tales being real. Or were they sacrifices to their own deity, or a bit of both? Whatever the truth was, Sean thought to himself, it meant the world was split into good people and what could be Satan worshippers. Sean didn't know if he had worked this all out himself through God's Devil's Advocate movie reference clues, or was God helping him along in his head even now? Chapter 5. After a lecture had finished, Sean decided to go and check out a bookstore he had seen on the same road as his university, and decided to experience a 90s lucid dream, as the store reminded him of horror shows for kids that he had watched in the 90s. A bell rang as Sean entered the store. "Hello," said the man behind the counter. "Are you looking for anything in particular?" asked the man. "No, I'm just having a browse, thanks," said Sean. The man behind the counter was in his 40s with piercing blue eyes and sandy blonde hair. Sean walked through the aisles of books and stopped when he saw books on religions. He picked up a couple and saw one on religion in the medieval times and another on witch trials and another on cults. Sean decided to buy the book on witch trials and cults. Sean placed the book on the counter. "What made you pick these two?" asked the man behind the counter. "Oh, I was just interested in the topic at the moment," replied Sean. "Do you think you're receiving messages from God in your head at the moment?" asked the man. "How did you know that?" gasped Sean. We always know here in the United States of America," said the man. "I knew from the shade of your blue eyes. When they are a piercing shade of blue, it's when you've been praying to God at night and maybe experiencing things a bit like the film Frailty," said the man. "That's how I thought of it," said Sean. "This essay I did for school on cults came true. Dead bodies are being brought back from abroad, and I think God magicked in Devil's Advocate movie warnings too. That's how I know people are cult murderers from the signs," said Sean. "Well, you're not crazy," said the man. "My name is Adam," said the man. "What we're dealing with here are Satan worshippers," said Adam. "Some are Satan worshippers, others join so they can kill people they envy in their neighbourhoods or from their schools," said Adam. "Like in Jeepers Creepers?" asked Sean. "Exactly that," replied Adam. "Are they in all the places of worship?" asked Sean. "Well, there aren't just churches anymore. There's temples from other religions, Asian ones too. So they could all be linked together by now throughout the different races," Adam told him. "Is it all the churches?" Sean asked. "Many," said Adam. "They get infiltrated and it starts spreading," said Adam. "Why do they worship Lucifer?" asked Sean. "What do they get out of it?" "Just being evil and being able to do malicious things to people they envy. They abandoned God for not representing themselves. They want to do what Lucifer did to God. He tried to kill someone he was jealous of, and that's what they want to do. So they turned to Lucifer instead," Adam said. "This has spread to the Asian religions too?" asked Sean. "Yes," said Adam. "The leaders of the churches infiltrate the priests at the Asian ones. Then they spread it to their own communities in secret." "Is this in every country in the world?" asked Sean. "Yes," said Adam. "It's in every country across the world. It's a world full of God worshippers, who are those who pray to him, the non-evil who don't pray, and the ones getting infiltrated by the cult, and the cult members definitely not getting into heaven," said Adam. "So the good get in?" asked Sean. "That's right," said Adam. I wondered if I had to kill a cult murderer to get in. In my head I received the words anointed ones about these 5 men who killed a man in the 90s in England, said Sean. Well, the good will go to heaven. The anointed ones means sainthood. Some of us believe if we kill them we achieve sainthood in heaven, which we believe may be a title or honour from God. Maybe extra riches, said Adam. So the aim is the kingdom of heaven. If we want honour, or perhaps more, then we kill them, asked Sean. That's right, said Adam. Were you worried about psychological issues at a former point of life? What was the experience? Asked Adam. I got a photographic image of the knife in the kitchen and started panicking. It happened at 14 and 22, said Sean. It was a slight schizophrenic concern, but I returned to normal after a few days. Now I figure that's because it's magic from God, really. Then I started to think in my head it meant God wanted me to be an executioner, but I don't want to go to prison, said Sean. It doesn't just mean God wants you to be an executioner, Adam told him. It means someone or your town is trying to kill you. 14 and 22 means it's points when the cult in town has decided to kill you. What? Gasped Sean. Well, there's some good news too, said Adam. We think the non-evil are protected from God. Did you hear about a shooting at a church last summer in the States? The police still haven't caught them. We think, said Adam, that you only lose protection from a good God when you become a cult member and say yes to murder. That is what the term fallen means. The ones not in on murder yet but are turning evil, we think, may injure themselves, or a murder may be downgraded to an injury as their warning one, said Adam. And if they say yes after that and don't learn the lesson, they die in the next attempt on themselves. Like being the fools who say yes to murder in the cult, and there's a bunch of other ones trying to kill them over appearance, whatever the reason for envy is, said Adam. I went on holiday the summer after university. My old flatmate kept talking about the balcony and accidentally walking through the glass doors. Does that mean I just made it out alive with God's protection? Otherwise they would have pushed me off the balcony, asked Sean. That's right, said Adam. So it's a joint cult on my home side of life and university side, asked Sean. They're growing too powerful, said Adam. Even if we're protected from murder, they're still growing and can make our life difficult in other ways, like making life strange for people at their workplaces, like being stuck in the faculty. They may also be making walking down the road a weird part of life and displaying antisocial behaviour towards pedestrians. Do you want to become a part of us? Asked Adam. There's me and one other friend of mine. Do you want to meet up with us both? Asked Adam. We can talk some more about it all and go into greater detail. Sure, said Sean. When do you want to meet? Asked Sean. Come back here at 7 p.m. and we'll meet in the back. Tell no one, said Adam. Okay, I'll see you then, said Sean. He left the store, bell chiming behind him. Chapter 6. Thanks for coming, Sean, said Adam. This is Steve. Adam introduced Sean to his friend Steve. Steve had dark hair and deep green eyes. He looked like he was in his late 30s. So, you know the situation, said Steve. The satanic cult societies are infiltrating our countries. Adam told me about the experiences in your mind. The same happened to both of us too, but in our early 30s. We both relocated and left the towns we were from. We started suspecting cults from seeing documentaries and also think God magic's in some conversations about evil people and the signs of them. We were from towns trying to kill us and both prayed at night since being children too. That's how we can handle the experience, through prayer. Are you taking the sainthood part seriously too? Asked Sean. Yes, said Steve. Have you killed any of them yet? Asked Sean. No, but we want to, since the ones who shot at the church down south last year, killing 49, haven't been caught yet, said Steve. Do you want to do one too? Asked Steve. A hit on a church? Asked Sean. Yes, said Adam. We can get evidence first and spy on them. As I said, we think God protects all the non-evil from dying and being killed, so there's no way that we can get anyone who is innocent, said Adam. Okay, said Sean. I'd still rather get evidence and then think about doing it, said Sean, contemplating sainthood. Okay, we're going to go look through the window of the church located on Park Avenue, not far from here, on Friday night. Sermons are meant to take place in the mornings. We're going to see if anything is going on there at 10 p.m. at night, said Adam. Meet us here around 9 p.m. and we'll drive there and see what we see. We will wear balaclavas too in case they see us through the window spying on them. They won't be able to see our faces to recognize us again, said Adam. It's a plan, said Steve. Shall we make a name up for ourselves, suggested Steve, like the Knights of the Holy Order? Well, it kind of feels like that, said Adam. I'm getting a bit of a numinous feeling in my heart, said Sean. Looks like God is guiding us on the right path, said Steve. Okay, Friday night we begin, said Steve. Chapter 7. Sean was on the way to the church with Adam and Steve. As they parked up outside it, Adam said, Are you ready? We're just going to put our balaclavas on and look through the window. If we get noticed, everyone run straight to the car and we'll drive away. Okay, said Sean. The three put their balaclavas on and left the car. They went to the side of the church and looked through the window at the side of the church. They saw a gathering there. The church was completely full, every row of seats filled up at 10 p.m. at night. They saw a man in a suit standing at the altar. He was holding a knife. There was a young woman strapped down to a table in the middle of the altar. She was struggling and crying. The church was in an area where there wasn't anything else nearby, so it looked like they hadn't bothered gagging the female because no one would hear if she screamed. The man raised the knife in the air and brought it plummeting down straight into the young woman's heart. The woman's eyes were still open. The man brought the knife down and stabbed her again and again. When the woman finally closed her eyes, blood seeping out of her chest, the people in the church started cheering. Sean gasped, fear and disbelief stuck in his throat. Let's go, said Steve. Adam, Sean and Steve hurried to the car. Steve ignited the engine and they sped away into the night. Chapter 8. They are an evil murder cult, said Sean. I can't believe all those people started cheering. They're evil freaks, said Steve. Why do they want to murder people, asked Sean. And why people younger than themselves as well, when they've already had their years in their 30s and 40s for the over 40s there? It means they can murder anyone they're jealous of at any age. They may know by now that they have to turn people into one of them before killing works, so aim to turn members of the population they're jealous of due to appearances or anything else, and then killing them works, said Steve, once the individual says yes to someone else's murder. If they worship Lucifer or Satan as a part of it, that is from him being their hero doing what they want to do, killing those they envy. Lucifer as their deity is when he's the original killer, said Steve, like all the murderers on earth being an offshoot of him, other than if you're killing themselves or executing them. They need to be shot, said Sean. Does this mean they have police officers and powerful members of society in the cults to get away with it, so we can't report anything to the police, asked Sean. That's right, said Adam. They're just going to say we made it up and call us nutcases. It means we don't know who anyone around us is in any profession. God, so real life is actually like in the Faculty movie, asked Sean. Yes, said Adam. It means no one can have a normal life in the workplace. People may be committing suicide due to their evil lines and running down like in the Devil's Advocate film when they are their friends or family, and the workplace being weird and unfriendly may contribute to suicides too. Every road in the world might be weird to walk down eventually with their weird eyes everywhere locating their Jeepers Creepers appearance kills, said Steve. What shall we do, asked Sean. Well, all three of us should make our own decision. Do you want to get guns and open fire on them? We can wear balaclavas, and I'm confident with God's protection we will never get caught, said Steve. I want to do it, said Sean. As do I, said Adam. Okay, said Steve. We're going to take the evil freaks down. Chapter 9. Steve, Adam and Sean planned to return to the church on Friday evening with balaclavas and rifles to shoot everyone in the church. They planned to shoot every single person in there and not leave one alive. The night before, Sean lay on his bed waiting for the following day after finalizing the plans with Adam and Steve at the store. Sean decided to pray to try and feel a connection to God before he went through with it. Dear God Almighty, Sean said to himself in his head, I know what we are going to do tomorrow is the right thing to do. Whether or not the part about sainthood is real, we are doing the right thing. The evil ones must be shot, and I believe this is what you want us to do. And that is why we have all had the experiences I originally thought to be psychological, but magic is the only explanation for them. I thank you for your intervention and warning about the area I and we all lived in being a cult town, and for sending the image of the knife in my head to mean that I am a target of theirs. I thank you for the conversations about the Devil's Advocate you magicked in and the cult essay. Please protect us tomorrow and protect us from being caught. Thank you, God, your servant on earth, Sean. Sean turned out his light and closed his eyes, waiting for the following day to arrive. Chapter 10. Sean, Adam and Steve parked the car near the church. It was Friday night, 10 p.m. again. "Are you ready?" Adam asked both. "Yes," said Sean and Steve. "Now, we make sure we shoot every single one of them," said Adam. "Leave no one alive. No matter what, do not take off your balaclava. When I say let's go when we're done, we rush out of there and drive." "Okay," said Sean and Steve. "We'll get the rifles out of the boot and we'll head straight in through the door," said Adam. Sean, Steve, and Adam left the car and went to the boot. Adam gave them both the rifles. "It's time," said Adam. All three of them headed to the door of the church. "May God be with us," Sean whispered to himself as they stood in front of the church door, his heart pounding. Adam put his hand on the handle of the door, turned his head, and nodded to them both. He opened the door and stepped into the church. He began to walk down the aisle of the church, and Steve and Sean followed in line order. Adam began shooting to the left as he walked down the aisle. Steve shot to the right. Sean stood in front of the church door, ready to shoot anyone who tried to run out. The people in the church never noticed them coming in. When Adam started shooting first, the people at the front turned around and screamed. They didn't know that they'd have no time to run out, as Sean was waiting there. The man at the front looked dismayed as he had another knife in his hand like the week before, and another woman was tied to a table in the middle of the altar, this time gagged. Adam shot him before he could reach the door. Steve went to the altar and shot the woman, tied and gagged too, as she was still one of them to be in the position in the first place. It was a bloodbath. Sean began shooting moments later as the people in the front rows nearly ran to the door. Sean saw it as killing freaks, their evil, twisted faces panicking as their atrocities were done back to themselves, and Sean thought of the atrocities that they never got to do, as those who were good were protected by God, as they thought. He saw himself as God's soldier and representative as he shot all the people of the church running to the door. The gunshots continued until every single person in the church had been executed. Finally, it was over. They were all dead. "It's done," said Adam. Sean left the door to look at the pews of seats full of the twisted evil corpses. Blood was everywhere. "Let's go," said Adam. Sean opened the door and the three of them rushed out. As soon as they were in the car, Adam began to speed away. Chapter 11. Sean took his balaclava off after the three were well away from the church. He couldn't believe what they had just done. He felt powerful and exhilarated and felt completely sure of himself. He knew they had done the right thing. He decided to say a little prayer in his head, telling God that he hopes this pleases him. He felt sure of himself for the first time in his life. He knew what they had done was right, and there was no convincing him otherwise. Steve and Adam stared straight ahead in silence, lost in their own thoughts. By the time it was a few months later, Shauna spent the weekend spying on other churches in the state with Adam and Steve, and the three had executed the congregations at 3 churches. They'd seen them all participating in more sacrifice killings at the altar, always a man in his 40s at the front with the knife in his hand. All 3 had been reported on the news as politically motivated killings. They were suggesting they were Protestant killings in Catholic churches. As Adam said, nothing had happened to himself, Adam, or Steve. They continued with their pretense lives as usual. Sean did all of his essay work for his master's course and carried on socializing and smiling with his friends. Adam was right. God was looking out for themselves. They had his protection. Sean felt a little saintly some of the time. He felt a strength in him as they did it and thought God had definitely sent him to America to find himself. No more psychological confusion or concerns for himself. As the time was approaching for Sean to go back to England, he was unsure what to do upon his return in the satanic cult town he was currently in with his family. He discussed it with Adam and Steve. "I can't get guns and start shooting in England. It's not even possible for me to get a gun there for the same thing," said Sean. "You're only 23 and you've already achieved sainthood, participating in 3 of them already, helping the good people of America. When the rest of them know in secret that there has been 3 executions of at least 40 of them in each church, it will stop them from wanting to carry on with their evil craft. They're probably starting to abandon it," said Adam. "Should I go around and try stabbing individuals with a knife at night time in England? Follow the cult members around?" asked Sean. "I think you should tell your family about the cults, but not about what you have been doing here or your experiences in your head either. Just tell them you started talking about the behaviour there over here in America and talk about the dead bodies coming back from abroad with the families there, and people you spoke to here said they had been murdered," said Adam. "So I should persuade my family to move?" asked Sean. "That's right, son," added Steve. I'll never speak to anyone from there again. Don't go on social media and change your number and email address, said Adam. Start a whole new life, said Steve. And if the same evil cult signs are there, asked Sean. It's better being in an area you haven't grown up in so there aren't any lifelong vendettas. Keep your wits about you and keep your head down, said Adam. Okay, and what about executions in England? Do you think I should try to do any? It looks like you were right about being protected by God. We haven't been caught here, said Sean. You're only 23, said Adam. I don't want to dissuade you from anything. It's not my place. Maybe give it a few years and wait until you are 30. You may not be able to trust anyone over there, so don't talk to anyone about it. There may not be the likes of me and Steve over there. The decision lays with you. You might want to give it a few years and let yourself grow into a full man first. Thank you, said Sean. I'll take your advice and persuade my family to move and give it a few years and think about doing any individual ones in England in the future. Well done, son, said Adam. You've achieved greatness by 23. Hopefully we'll all see each other in heaven again one day with our sainthood pedestal, said Adam. Adam, Steve and Sean decided not to do any more before Sean left for England, with the mania all over the news at the moment. When the time came for Sean to leave America and go back to England, Sean went to the store one last time. Remember, said Adam, if you ever hear of any more shootings at places of worship, it was me and Steve. Thank you both, said Sean, for guiding me to the path of greatness. It is better we do not stay in touch, said Adam. We don't want any emails traced back to us or any speaking in code decoded, just in case, even with God's protection. Let's take no risks. If you ever visit America again, come to the shop and visit. We'll see if there's any more to do together. May God be with you for your path in England, said Adam. Thank you, said Steve, for coming with us at your young age. If I never make it back to America for a visit, I'll see you both in heaven. May we all live to see old age and die happily in our beds in our sleep. All of us 23 again in paradise, said Sean. Sean shook both of their hands and said thank you again, pride and strength welling up in his heart. The next day he caught a plane back to England. Chapter 12. When Sean returned to England, he noticed some shorter males around in hoods and spoke to his family about relocating out of the city and moving to a completely different area. He told them everything that Adam and Steve had instructed him to tell them. They agreed to sell up and relocate as a family, as they didn't like the area anymore and had also been noticing weird eyes around and characters in hoods. They managed to find a house and moved to a nice countryside area away from any main cities. They all found jobs and settled together as a family. Sean settled into the area and his family became friendly with the locals. He kept his wits about him and didn't get too close to anyone. When it came to dating, he kept himself from getting into anything serious just in case the women were a part of the cult. Sean still prayed to God every night and kept an eye on the news. When an attack was reported on an Asian temple in the USA, he smiled knowing it was Adam and Steve and celebrated there being another one. He saw it as being an attack on the satanic cult worshippers, whatever they were, and still called it a satanic cult, even if the majority were in it to kill people they were jealous of in Jeepers Creepers. When it came to sainthood and thinking about heaven, all Sean cared about was entry into heaven, the kingdom of paradise. He wanted to live forever and become immortal and be 23 again forever after aging. There wasn't anything better than the thought of it. He saw the aging process as being to release oneself from vanity. Maybe God was really good looking. Maybe that was where the origins of jealousy came from. If people on planet Earth killed over envy over appearances, maybe that was what happened with Lucifer and the 1/3 of angels in heaven. Sean prayed to God every night, praying for sainthood and his entry into heaven, and swore to be God's servant on earth. He felt fulfilled and as if he had meaning in his life. All he could do now was live, age, and pray, and wait for the gates of the kingdom of God's heaven to open to him, and become an immortal for eternity, and wait to say hello to his old friends Adam and Steve, still on the path of helping to save the good from an existence surrounded by Satan-worshipping Jeepers Creepers killers. He would wait, age, and die, and wait for his day of glory whenever God decided it was time for him to enter his kingdom. Chapter 13. It was a dark evening in Colindale around 8 p.m. A 27-year-old male left the church on his road laughing at being assigned to stab 2 females who lived on the roads next to his one. He would do it the following night, as he knew one usually went out on Saturday nights. He would lurk and wait for her to leave her house and use his kitchen knife, and after wash it and place it back in his kitchen drawer. It would become a season of terror for Collindale, as the residents who weren't in their town cult would be scared of a killer on the loose. When he got his second victim, they would be terrified. He would happily read the newspapers as he read about himself with the protection of the church. There was no way he could be caught. They even had cult members in the police by now. Just pin it on a teenager, he thought. He happily walked down the road, excited for the secret fame and the glory that he would receive from the fellow cult members in all the pretend places of worship in town. As he walked down the road of one of the women he was planning to kill tomorrow, he gasped. The male looked down at his chest as he felt pain there and saw blood gurgling out and a knife sticking out through his chest. His eyes widened in dismay. He spluttered and fell to the ground, dead. A figure stood over him, wiped the knife with a gloved hand, and placed it back into his pocket. The figure had a scarf wrapped around his face and a hood over his head so his face could not be seen. The figure walked away slowly and turned the corner at the end of the road. The end. Okay, so thank you everyone to listening to myself read my second ever book I wrote called Towns of Darkness out loud. It's available on Amazon in paperback or on Kindle, like I said. So that concludes season 3, episode 2. I hope everyone enjoyed my story. Until next time, take care everyone. Have a fabulous week.